The consider approval of TASB policy EHBB local, special programs gifted and talented students. Was this a committee recommendation, Ms. Latham?
Yes, Ms. Riddell, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, ma'am. This policy was an update. Kathy London from TASB helped us craft this based on how our district works with gifted and talented, and based on the new state plan. I believe each of you received a copy of the state plan. The policy does reflect the provisions that must be addressed in policy according to the state plan. It does leave the details of the program to the district plan. New terminology used in TEA's statewide plan for gifted and talented is included. The policy also reflects the district's current practices and options that we exercise according to TEA's statewide plan.
Okay, so we have a motion, it's a committee motion, so it does need a second, and open for discussion. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Riddell? Seeing none, all in favor? That's unanimous, Ms. Arnold. Move on to finance, monthly investment report, March 31st, 2011.
The district had $455 million invested as the end of March 31st, with an average yield to maturity being 0.187. The weighted average maturity was 31 days. We earned $73,000 in the current month as investment income, and for the fiscal year to date, we've earned $420,000.
Thank you, ma'am. So I need a motion for the monthly investment report. Motion, Mr. Ferguson. Second, Mr. Knapp. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's unanimous, Ms. Arnold. And moving on to consider adoption of order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds, establishing sales parameters, authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject. Mr. Martin from Southwest Security shall join us at the microphone.
Thank you, Ms. Kyer. John Martin with Southwest Securities. I know that y'all have been here a while, but I have to hand you a piece of paper.
Cutting into your 3 minutes.
Tonight we're going to talk about saving money a little bit. We tried to do this very similar scenario back in September or October, and almost immediately after the board said we'd like to refinance the 2005 bonds, interest rates went like this. So now they've come back down, have become more favorable, and so we want to look at not only some of those 2005 bonds, but also some of the 2004 bonds that are ready for eligible for redemption August 15th. So this sheet shows you the savings that, based upon current market conditions, if we were to sell bonds today where we believe the refunding would occur. What we've done is to, in terms of, we're still in a building program, and so we know that we'll be putting more bonds on the books as we continue to do what the voters have asked us to do, and so we want to make sure that we buffer that INS tax rate. The INS tax rate, you'll recall, can only be used for payment of debt. We can't use it on M&O or anything like that. So this we're dealing with in terms of the reduction in the savings is just on the debt service side. So this will allow us more wiggle room, more favorable terms, and be able to help us meet the promise that we made to the taxpayers in terms of the overall tax rate as we move forward with the rest of the last authorization. So overall, we anticipate saving about $1.7 million in net present value savings, and we're really going to take those over in the next few years. So if you look at the savings, because that's the whole idea, where we can get the most benefit right now for us is to pay off those bonds. We're going to replace bonds that are yielding a little over 5% with bonds that are at 3%, thereabouts. So it will be a nice, 4.8% to 3%. So that's how the savings would work. What we're asking for tonight is parameters to be approved. You'll see in the agenda item, and the parameters really that are in that adopt bond order say that you're telling us to move forward with the transaction so long as the savings, net present value savings, are at least 4%. Right now, we believe they're over at 5%. Now, the rest of the story, the good news is the administration gave us the go-ahead to start the process before, we can always pull back to start the process. So we've recontacted the rating agencies, S&P and Fitch, and we just saw them. We just went through that rating process back when we sold bonds back in January. And unlike the federal government, they just affirmed our rating and gave us a stable outlook. So congratulations for continuing with your AA+ rating. So who knows, we might have the same rating as the federal government before it's all done with, if you saw the news today. So, Mr. Kovish is here, our bond counsel, wherever he went. There's Chuck, he's waving. And as usual, he has some documents for us. I'm here to answer any questions.
Yes, we need a motion.
You need us to read something into the minutes, Tom, just
I don't think so.
move to accept
Yeah.
this item 2 as written.
Just
Okay. So I'm moving to this item
Okay.
as proposed.
We have a motion, Mr. Ferguson. I need a second. Ms. Fowdy? Anybody have any questions or
Yes.
concerns for Mr. Martin?
Mr. Martin, can you talk about negative arbitrage just for a second, because it's so exciting?
Mr. Ferguson, I knew that you would read that last footnote. The negative arbitrage is really the savings that we're leaving on the table by not waiting. Some of the bonds that we have, the 2005 bonds, are not callable until next year. So this is an advance refunding. You heard in your investment report that we can't obtain the yield in that escrow that we would like to have. If we were allowed by federal law to invest that escrow at the yield on these bonds, we can't get that. If we could get the yield on these bonds, there would be zero negative arbitrage. But we're only getting, in the escrow, 0.1%, whatever it is. I mean, it's ridiculous. So you're taking a chance of, we say, the negative arbitrage, and we had a long discussion with Dr. Waddell and with Becky and Teresa about that. And what the bet is that rates will be at least 0.3% higher a year from now than they are now. So if they're any higher than that, we made a really good deal. But it is a bird in the hand, as you know, when you're refinancing. And so that's where and there's still a lot of bonds. What we did too is we took a smaller transaction than we showed you back in September. We're leaving a lot of those bonds out there to hope for that opportunity, that we've kind of hedged it a little bit. So there's still a whole bunch of bonds, maybe $30 to $40 million in bonds callable next year that will make a lot more sense next year than they make now. We know that.
If I'm reading this right, you're saying we could get close to $569,000 this fiscal year if we act on this promptly?
That is correct.
Well,
So I have a motion and a second on the floor. Does anybody have any discussion? Any questions? Being none, all in favor? That is unanimous, Mr. Arnold. Thank you very much. Moving on to resolution for waiver of penalty and interest charges on property tax account 131572DEN for tax year 2010. Who would like to speak on this? Well, when we have a motion first. Need a motion? Motion, Mr. Ferguson. Second, Ms. Fowdy. Okay. Questions, discussion? Anybody have any questions on this? I think it was fairly self-explanatory. Sorry, yes, I'm losing my verbiage.
the bottom line here is we Unless somebody incorrectly through some mistake on our part or the appraisal district did.
Yes,
So
somebody,
we're correcting their taxes in the legally required way.
somebody to get the bill. Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is unanimous. And resolution for request for waiver of penalty and interest charges on property tax account, same one, so it's more or less the same thing. I need a motion. Motion, Ms. Foudy, second. Ms. Gregg? Any discussion? I don't think so. All in favor? That's unanimous, Ms. Arnold. Moving on to student services, the demographic study. I believe, Mr. Buck.
Yes, Ms. Kyer, Dr. Waddell had asked me to look into the possibility of conducting a comprehensive demographic study. We currently have school district strategies as a vendor. I contacted Brent Alexander with School District Strategies, and he has sent a proposal, which I've listed in the letter. We did not have that budgeted for this year, so I've submitted a letter to the board asking for a budget amendment for $25,000, which will be the approximate amount of the demographic study. With the board's approval, then we'll move forward and we'll have that demographic study completed by June 2nd of this year.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. I need a motion and a second. Motion, Ms. Foudy, second, Mr. Ferguson. Discussion on this item? Okay.
I just had one question. When was that last one that we did?
2005.
Thank you.
No, I'm sorry, it's 2007. It's 2007.
Well, what would be the desired outcome, or what's the purpose of doing this in general terms versus just our own in-house projections?
Well, the demographic company is better able to take all of the various facets of growth and demographic change and in predicting what's going to happen with the enrollment in all of our schools. School District Strategies already has most of the information in place. We would have to update them with the new schools that we have and the new attendance zones. They have expanded what they do as far as the services that they can provide us, which would include information on changing demographics and what's going to happen with that particular item in our district. That's not something that they had in their last demographic study. So as we move forward with constructing new facilities, we believe it's beneficial to have the experts advising us on where we believe that growth is going to take place.
Ms. Fulton?
I would also like to mention that the construction committee considered this as part of the long-range facilities plan that we want to put in place. And in order to be strategic about what we build and where we build it, we need to have current and up-to-date data. And the 2007 study was very thorough and was informative. However, we all know the economy changed shortly thereafter, and not all of those predictions, which were valid at the time, have now come to fruition at this precise moment. So we need some up-to-date data when we're making decisions about facilities and exactly what it is that we're going to do with them.
Anybody else have any? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? That is unanimous, Ms. Arnold. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Ms. Fulton, I believe you have a number of things you want to pull off, and then we'll see if anybody else wants anything pulled off other than what she has.
I'm going to move to approve the consent agenda with pulling these items. Letter B, number 1C, O, Q, B, B, and FF.
I have a motion, Ms. Fulton. I need a second. Mr. Ferguson, okay. Discussion. Seeing none, no discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda is with the items removed by Ms. Fulton? That's unanimous, Ms. Arnold. Okay, move on to it. Yeah, we have.
No, I can't. But I want to pull letter Q for separate consideration.
Okay. Okay, so right now we have, Mr. Ferguson, you have a motion for us?
A second. Okay, I move we approve the items from the consent agenda under purchasing items C, O, B, B, E, E, and F, F.
Okay, so motion, Mr. Ferguson, I need a second. Mr. Knapp? Okay. Do we need to vote emotionally on, emotionally? Wow, I'm sorry. Emotionally, don't vote emotionally. Yes, it's been motioned and seconded to vote on C, O, B, B, E, E, and F, F. Okay. Does anybody have any discussion on any of those items?
Just for clarification, Ms. Kyer, I know on my sheet EE is marked, but I didn't say EE because EE is fine for me to vote on. So we already took care of EE.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about EE. Okay. So I shall
Just
read
to
it.
clarify the motion
Yes.
is without
Yes.
EE on this.
Yes. Do you want to clarify your motion?
Clarifying the question on the table then is C, O, B, B, and F, F.
Thank you, sir. Okay, all in favor, any discussion? All in favor of the motion? It's unanimous with Ms. Fulton abstaining.
I'll move we approve item Q.
Motion, Mr. Ferguson, second. Mr. Knapp. Discussion. Mr. Ferguson, would you like to speak to your motion?
For Ms. Fulton.
Well, I have some concerns about this particular recommendation. First of all, we didn't receive the backup until about, I don't know, 20 minutes before the meeting started. And so that was information that I would have preferred to review ahead of time. So my question would be, in pulling this for separate consideration, if we could postpone this item if it were to materially affect the district negatively in some way, if we were to wait and bring that item back when we had a chance to review the information. Specifically, I have questions about the process and how the recommendation was made. So I don't know if we want to have that discussion now or if we want to postpone it to a future meeting.
We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about it right now.
I think, can we just clarify whether we materially harm the district if we postpone it till the May 9th meeting? I think that was what you were asking, Ms. Fulton.
That is my first question, yes.
Dr. Dell, Ms. Kyer, the current contract we have with the existing vendor runs through May 31st.
And our existing contract is with?
Is with Airmark.
The other question I had is which one of these acronyms on the spreadsheet stands for the name of the company that you're recommending, which I'm not even going to attempt to say.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you're looking at, Ms. Leckham, but I think it is the acronym of the recommended vendor is Sodexo, SODEXO.
Why not?
It's on the next page.
I'll ask Ms. Amber, or Ms. Bolton's question again. Can you tell us what the process was that you moved through? Because when I look at this, they weren't necessarily the least expensive.
Yes, Ms. Lynn, let me talk a little bit. Mr. Martin in purchasing can fill in any of the details. District did put a bid out for custodial services as our contract. This is we're in the last year of the existing contract. A bid for custodial services was put out. There were a number of people that showed up at the pre-bid. There were 7 proposals received. They range in price from about $7.1 million to about $9.6 million. The lowest bid, $7,132,479, was rejected because the vendor did not meet bid specs in that they do not offer a hospitalization policy to their employees. So that bid was rejected on that basis. The process then went to the next lowest bidder and a rating process that related from everything from references to existing school district work in other places, a whole range of things. And the vendor Sodexo was the #1 rated or recommended contractor from the bids received. Their bid submitted was $8,300,000, over $300,000. Just to talk that, well, that's the process we used. It was a several-week process of rating and reviewing references, reviewing bids to make sure all the specifications were met. And does that answer your question specifically?
Yes, thank you.
But I assume this was an RFP, am I guessing correctly? That they're
Competitive sealed proposal, yes,
It's
CSP.
CSP, okay. And so, was it clear in there to them that this vendor, that they were to offer hospitalization, they just neglected to include it? Or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So can I ask if is the recommendation for the everyday or the every other day?
That's a very good question, Ms. Fulton. The recommendation is for everyday cleaning. We have an every other day classroom cleaning plan that from the opinion, from the principal surveys we have, from the opinion of the folks sitting here at the desk that deal with principals, has been met with somewhat marginal success. It is not, the every other day plan has left quite a bit of dissatisfaction in the classroom. It is not due to laziness, it is not due to poor work ethics. It is just an overwhelming task that has not met the expectation of the district. Therefore, based on conversations with the superintendents that deal with principals, based on the principal surveys that we receive, I'm recommending that we go to an everyday classroom cleaning, a regular cleaning schedule. So the recommendation that is follows is for that.
Ms. Kyer, I was concerned about that every other day cleaning when we went to that to save $1.4 million, and I brought that question up. So it's not the company's fault, it's our fault for having approved that probably, because I didn't think that that was going to work. So, and I'm sure, but Airmark is still, they came in at it every other day because that's what we're doing now? Is that it? Oh, okay. Okay, I missed that one. Okay.
Okay, I have one more question. And this is because this is not my area of expertise. So when we go through a process like this and we have a competitive sealed proposal, once those come in, is that just the end of the process? You look at what you have on paper and you decide from that recommendation, or is there ever an opportunity to have a further discussion with the people that submitted bids to maybe say, you didn't include your hospitalization, did you want to, or is there any wiggle room in your price because we think we've got something better or something of that nature? Is that part of the process, or is that just not legally allowed or not our practice?
I would ask Mr. Martin to define what the process is.
The competitive seal proposal does allow the ability to visit with each vendor. As Mr. Williams said, we went through the process. The largest evaluation area was price, and then you go into experience and references. And then the second person, the second company came in, Sodexo, and then you go and you work with, go through that with that company, negotiate and talk about their process. And with the, not speaking for him, but I think with the price difference, that's where we stopped.
At the risk of failing in other motions, Kara, I would move that we postpone this item to a certain time, namely May 9th, 2011.
Killing me, man. Well, did everybody finish speaking to the motion before Mr. Ferguson makes his motion? That was amendment. Okay. A motion, Mr. Ferguson. I need of the amendment. Second, Ms. Fulton. Okay. So, Mr. Fulton. I'm sorry, Mr. Ferguson. Would you like to speak to your amendment of the motion?
You haven't done that in a while.
I've been getting pretty good lately.
Been pretty good. Yeah, I just think, given the reasons with which we got this information, it's a big decision. And I'm not questioning anything that was done. I just think it wouldn't hurt to look at it for 3 weeks, based on what Mr. Williams told us. So I think it'd be a good idea in the best interest of the district for us to do our due diligence on this.
Can I make a comment? I'm not quite sure what you're asking us to do at this point, though, because we did the legally required competitive seal proposal. It seems like, based on the answers that have been given by staff, we follow the law. Are you asking us that we reject all of these proposals and start over again? Because if you're not doing that, I'm a little confused about our next step. We have, as we just heard, when you have a competitive seal proposal, you can talk to the proposers, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think you said it, and I believe this is correct. You go from the first bidder, and then if you don't work things out, you go to the next. You don't just blanket talk to everybody. I'm not sure what it is about these proposals that we had submitted that would cause us to reject them and start over again. We can't go around what the law says and what our policy says regarding how we treat competitive seal proposals. And I'm not sure what what you may be thinking about that was not done in terms of receiving these and evaluating them. So unless we go out and say we're rejecting all these and call for new competitive seal proposals, I'm not sure what our next step needs to be here. Because if we stick with these proposals that we've received, we're going to have to do what we've already done, which is look at what's the best bid that we got, evaluate that, negotiate. But unless there's not a reason to go to the next proposer, then I don't know how we move up that ladder to another one when they've met all the specifications and they seem to be the best bid.
Well, and also, we just approved all the other CSPs, and we just got all of the information when we got here tonight, because there was a problem with the board book. So we just got the backup on all of them. We've approved all the others but this one.
I understand, but this one's big. The rest of them are fairly routine items. This is a fairly big deal. And I'm not saying anything was done wrong, and I don't think we're asking you to go do anything. I just want the board to be able to absorb this, and there may be another question or two, but I would expect we would approve it next time. I just want more than 20 minutes to look at $8 million proposal.
Can I ask another question? I just need to be clear what we're being asked to do here. We can wait another month, as you're asking. I don't know how we can do anything other than make the same recommendation we've already made, because that's what our policy requires us to do. Short of saying we're going to reject all these bids and start over again with new call for new bids to be sent to us, I fail to see how we're going to come forward again with anything other than the same proposal that we just put in front. I do understand that we will give you more time to look at it, but do you see what I'm saying there, Mr. Ferguson?
Just and Dr. Wardell, no respect is disrespect is intended. That's all I'm asking for the board to postpone it, not administration. We're not asking you to do anything different, other than for the board to have time to evaluate the information for this particular proposal. So I don't expect any action on the administration's part, other than put this back on the consent agenda for the May 9th meeting. That's the motion I made. Certainly, it's subject to the will of the board.
Vanilla, do you have any? Jeff? Okay. The one question I have.
Can state the question before we vote.
I'm not done yet. I haven't had a chance to say anything. One question I have. So all of the custodial people there right now, they're not our employees. They're another company's employees, the current companies.
That is correct.
That's correct. Have you had any kind of concern at all of changing of personnel in the schools? I mean, because we're worried about teachers and stuff like that, and a lot of these custodians are part of the part of the campus family. Okay. So I was just curious as to whether what happens to those custodians that are there now. Are they losing their job, or are they just carried over to the new company, or how does that work? Just for their, because just by looking at the wages here are different compared to, what they get now, or what, just like the zone manager and the supervisors, just the amount of the salary, there's a good delta there. So I don't know if it's set up differently, or if it's how it works. Is it a similar setup than what we have now, or is it going to be another learning curve that our people are going to have to go through?
That's really a great question, Ms. Kyer. I can assure you that not only has a consideration been given to existing custodians, a lot of worry, a lot of concern has been put forth over this. I would tell the board that this bid has not been taken lightly. It has not been quickly gone through. It has not been frivolously embraced. One of the concerns that we have is the condition of the existing custodians. They are not district employees, they're earmark employees. The recommended vendor is proposing to try to retain as many of those as possible. The bid spec had a salary range of what they make from the lowest to the highest, so that we could make sure that the new bidder was not going to come in at minimum wage and tell everybody you can work at minimum wage or not. The proposed bidder is coming in at about the mid-range of that. We know that on the high side, there's probably not a lot of employees that make the very highest, so they're coming in at the midpoint. And the commitment that the recommended vendor has made to the district is that they will make a hard attempt, they will do their best to retain all of the people that are willing to go to work for them, because they know the building best, they know the needs best. Another concern that I've had that we talked about was at length is the number of personnel that are being spec'd. And really, if you look at these bids, a big portion of the delta of what's bid relates to the number of employees or the number of custodians that the bid is based upon. And it's a very aggressive bid for the new vendor. We certainly have had discussions about their cleaning ability, how many we have, how many it takes, and have received a commitment to them that they will clean our buildings at this rate, and if not, they will bring additional personnel in to get the buildings clean, get the job clean, at no additional charge to the district. In the whole process of this, we also looked at bringing this service in-house, taking it back over again, and spent really exhaustive hours, the purchasing department has spent to determine what that would take, what it would involve, and really kind of come in with the same general amount of custodians that we believe it would take to do that. If you look at these 7 bids, 4 of them really are fairly close together. It's $8 million plus, but there's only about $500,000 that separate the 4 main bids. So a lot of consideration has been given to this. I'm sure the purchasing guys can say, but I've stayed up, lost sleep over this, really worried about what's happening to the people that have got us to the point that we're at. All I would just say to you is that we've had extensive discussions with this recommended vendor about all of those things, and have received a commitment that they will try to retain as many as possible, as many as would be interested in the work. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Yes, it did. Okay, so we have a amendment on the floor, motion on the floor. Mr. Ferguson, we ready to vote?
Oh, God.
Mr.
Restate the motions to postpone actions
Could
to
you-
certain time, namely. Sorry, turning it off. Motion is to postpone this item to a certain time, namely May 9th, 2011.
And that's been seconded by Mrs. Fulton. So ready to vote? All in favor of that motion? Mr. Ferguson? No? Okay, just Mr. Ferguson. Those against? Everybody but Mr. Ferguson. Could name them all off, but I'll probably mess up somebody's name. So move on to the original motion, which is to approve Q. I need a motion. That's already on the table. I knew that. Just testing you guys.
I made the motion.
I was just testing you guys, making sure you're awake.
Well, let me just say, then,
Can we?
if
Okay,
the
can we
board
call?
is good, then I'll vote for it.
Okay. No further discussion. All in favor? That is unanimous, Ms. Arnold. Well, thank you for that bit of discussion. I enjoyed it, really. Thank you for the information, Mr. Williams. Moving on, and oh, wait a minute. I think that's it. We are adjourned. Oh, my Lord. Thank you all very much. It is 10:05.